All right, section 4.7 on Unit 4 is on operations on mixed numbers. So in this section, we're going to be learning how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide mixed numbers. Up till this point, all we've done is fractions. Okay, so first of all, let's just review what mixed numbers are. A mixed number is a combination of a whole number and a fraction, like 2 3/4 or negative 4 1/2. And the first thing you might see in your homework is learning how to graph these on a number line. So if you remember, to graph negative 5, we'd put a dot on negative 5. To graph 1/8, we put a dot about on 1/8, which is just after 0. Negative 1/2 would be halfway between 0 and negative 1, right here. So you'll see those, negative 5. Negative 4 1/2 would be between negative 4 and negative 5. 2 3/4 would be 3/4 of the way to 3. So if you can see that blue dot there. And then 1/8, as we talked about, in negative 1/2. All right, so to multiply and divide fractions, let's start with multiplication. You can read this if you like, but it says, first of all, to multiply or divide, we take the mixed numbers and rewrite them as improper fractions, and then multiply and divide as usual. Okay, so let's do an example here. Let's do 3 1/5 times 2 3/4. So if you read on your handout here, this is letter A, it does say to check by estimating. So let's do that first. 3 1/5 estimates to about 3. 2 3/4 would round up also to about 3. So our answer should be somewhere around 9. Okay? So if you get something that's not around 9, you know you've done something wrong. Okay, so to do this, we're going to flip them to improper fractions. To review how to do this, you take 3 times 5 is 15, add the 1, and you get 16 over 5. Same with 2 3/4. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11 over 4. Okay, so first of all, you want to flip them to improper fractions. Then we multiply as normal, so you multiply straight across. Remember, it saves you a lot of time to reduce first. The 4 and 16 can be reduced. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 16 4 times. Multiply straight across. 4 times 11 is 44. And 5 times 1 is 5. Now, since the problem was written with mixed numbers, our answer needs to be converted into a mixed number. So again, to do that, you ask yourself, how many times does 5 go into 44? Well, 5 times 8 is 40, so there's 4 left over, so it's 8 4/5, which is really close to our estimate. Remember, we should be getting an answer around 9. Same thing with letter B, 1 2/3 times 11/15. Well, 1 2/3 would estimate to about 2, and 11/15 would estimate to about 1. So we should get an answer somewhere around 2. Okay? So first, again, you need to convert your mixed number into improper. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5/3, times 11/15. Reduce first if you can. 3 and 11 don't reduce. 3 and 5 or 11 and 15, but the 5 and 15 can reduce. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 15 3 times. Multiply straight across. 1 times 11 is 11, and 3 times 3 is 9. So you get 11 over 9, but remember to rewrite that as a mixed number. 9 goes into 11 one time, with 2 left over, so it's 1 2/9, which is kind of close to 2. It's a little bit closer to 1, but because we rounded it, it looks about right. Okay, so that's how you multiply mixed numbers. So why don't you go ahead and try. Here's their explanation. If you want to look through that, you can. But it's the same thing we just did. So why don't you try to do letter C, 2 1/4 times 3 2/3. Okay, so now let's talk about how to divide mixed numbers. So letter A on your handout says 3 2/7 divided by 2 3/14. Again, let's check it by estimating first. 3 2/7 would be about 3, and 2 3/14 would be about 2. So you get 3 divided by 2, which is about 1 1/2, or 3/2. So we know our answer should be around 1 1/2. So again, to do this, you flip them to improper fractions. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2 is 23/7, divided by 2 times 14 is 28, plus 3 is 31/14. Okay, so convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions. Now you just divide the fractions. Remember, to divide fractions, we flip and multiply. So 23/7 times 14/31. Multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, called the divisor. Okay, now we simplify anything we can. 7 and 14 would reduce to 1 and a 2. Multiply straight across. 23 times 2 is 46. And 1 times 31 is 31. Okay, that's the improper answer. 31 goes into 46 one time, with 15 left over. So 1 in 15 31sts, which is really close to our estimate of 1 1/2. Okay, let's do letter B also. 11/18 divided by 2 and 5/6. So 11/18 would round to 1. 2 and 5/6 would round to 3. So we should get an answer around 1 divided by 3, which is 1/3. So again, you do 11/18 divided by, rewrite this as an improper fraction. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 5 is 17/6. Then to divide fractions, we flip and multiply. Hopefully you can still see that down there. The 6 and 18 would reduce to 1 and a 3. 11 times 1 is 11. 3 times 17 is 51. So you get 11/51, which is really close to our estimate of 1/3. Okay, so why don't you try letter C on dividing fractions? 5 and 2/3 divided by 2 and 5/9. Okay, so that's how you divide fractions. You can pause the video if you need to now to do letter C. Let's move on how to add and subtract mixed numbers. So to add and subtract mixed numbers, you do not have to convert them to improper fractions. You can if you'd like, but it's a lot more work than just adding their whole number parts and adding their fraction parts. Okay, so let's look at letter A on your handout. 12 and 5/12 plus 4 and 1/6. So to add these mixed numbers, you first add their fraction parts. And we usually write them vertical, like we would any other addition problem. So to add their fraction parts, first we have to get a common denominator, which in this case would be 12. So the first one's already 5/12. The second one would be multiplied by 2, would be 2/12. All right, now we can add their fractions. 5/12 plus 2/12 is 7/12. Okay, and then 12 plus 4 is 16 and 7/12. If you were to check this by estimating, the first one would estimate to 12, and the second one to 4. 12 plus 4 is about 16. So just by our estimate, we can see that's probably right. Okay, let's go on to letter C. I would like you to try letter B on your own right now. It's just like the one we just did. So let's look at letter C. 12 plus 3 and 6/7 plus 2 and 1/5. Okay, so let's do an estimate first this time. This would be 12 plus 4 plus 2. 12 plus 4 plus 2. We should get an answer around, what's that, about 18. So our estimate says our answer should be about 18. So to add mixed numbers, first thing we want to do is to get a common denominator. Our common denominator here would be 35. 7 times 5 is 35, so 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 7 is 35, so 1 times 7 is 7. Now when we add those together, you would get 37/35 for the fraction part, and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 for the whole number part. So you'd get 17, and 37/35. Now, that doesn't make very much sense because 37/36 is an improper fraction inside of a mixed number. So this is where we have to carry, just like we did before when you add and subtract. 37/35 is the same thing as 35 goes in there one time with 2 left over. Okay, so 37/35 is 1 2/35. Add that to the whole number we already have of 17, and we get 18 2/35. Okay, so if your two fractions together add up to more than 1, you're going to have to convert that to improper fraction, or to a mixed number, improper to a mixed number, and convert and add the whole numbers together. Okay, so our estimate was 18, and we got 18 2/35. So why don't you try letter D on your handout right now. Okay, and then lastly, let's talk about how to subtract mixed numbers. And then I'm going to make a second video on how to do the negative ones. So A says 8 3/7 minus 5 2/21. So let's estimate that again. That would be 8 minus 5. So our estimate says we should get an answer around 3. Okay, so let's just remember our estimate, this should be close to 3. Again, to subtract, it's just like adding. We have to get a common denominator, subtract the fraction parts, and then subtract the whole number parts. So our common denominator here is 21. Multiply by 3, we get 9/21. And the second one's already over 21, so it would be 2/21. So we can subtract those now. 9 minus 2 would be 7/21. And 8 minus 5 is 3. So 3 7/21. Make sure you reduce that. 7/21 reduces to 1/3. The 7 goes in there once, and 7 goes into 21 3 times. So our estimate was 3. We got an answer that was about 3 1/3. Okay, they aren't always that easy because sometimes when you subtract, you have to borrow, if you remember that, from our whole numbers section. So 9 1/5 minus 8 6/25. First, again, subtract the fractions. The common denominator would be 25. 5 times 5 is 25, so 1 times 5 is 5. Now we have a problem because we can't subtract the 5 minus the 6 because it would give us a negative number. All right, so this is where we have to do the borrowing. So we need to go back and borrow from our whole number 9. That would borrow and become an 8. All right, so what we did was we borrowed one whole number. So you can put that one whole in front because we borrowed it there. Now let's convert that to improper. 25 times 1 is 25 plus 5. This is the same thing as 30/25. Again, we have to go over 1 because we borrowed the whole number there. Now we can subtract the fractions. 30 minus 6 is 24/25. And 8 minus 8 leaves us with 0. So the answer is just 25/25. We forgot to do our estimation on this one. 9 1/5 would estimate to 9. 8 6/25 would estimate to 8. So we should get an answer around 1, which is what we did. Okay, I'm going to erase the board and then do one more with you, letter D. Okay, so letter D says 25 minus 10 2/9. If you do the estimate on this one, it would be 25 minus 10, which is 15. We should get an answer around 15. That's what our estimate says. Okay, to subtract mixed numbers, you first subtract the fraction part. Well, this one doesn't have a fraction part, which means it's 0/9. Okay, we can't do 0/9 minus 2/9. We first have to borrow from the whole number 25. That becomes a 24. Now we have 1 in 0/9, which would be the same thing as 9/9. 9 times 1 plus 0 is 9. 9/9 is the whole number that we borrowed it from. So now you can subtract 9 minus 2 gives us 7/9, and 24 minus 10 gives us 14. So 14 7/9, which is close.